White deck has, since its mana is a lot better, since it only has 2 colors, it gets room for a lot more of the special colorless utility lands. It's got a couple Mutavaults, a Ghost Quarter, and a Moorland Haunt, where Korey just has room for 1 Moorland Haunt because he needs more colored sources to support that red. A lot of the red cards are set up for aggro decks. You're playing Pillar of Flame and Warlord's Helix, but you also get Counterflux, which is sort of the ultimate trump in these counter battle matchups.
All right, so they're both starting off here with Shocklands tapped, Steam Vents for Korey, and a Hallowed Fountain for Andrew.
Korey on the play doesn't really matter as much in this matchup. The first 6 or so turns are all about making land drops and just sort of getting deeper into your deck, getting some velocity, some traction in the game with Think Twice's, cycling Azorius Charms, and in Korey's case, using Is It Charm to loot. And then we enter the end game where you start swinging big Sphinx's Revelations and end-step Restoration Angels and Planeswalkers and all that good stuff. So we see Andrew playing a Mutavault for his second turn, and Korey doing what I was just saying, getting deeper into his deck, making sure he hits his land drops, and that's what control mirrors are all about. Getting card advantage, 1, and making land drops, 2. So Think Twice is the perfect card for these matchups.
Now, AJ, you called it a control mirror, but Korey still has to be the aggressor in this matchup, right? He can't really want to go into the long game. He's got to finish this off kind of in the mid-range.
Yeah, he definitely has to close before Andrew has to, thanks to a Planeswalker, more utility lands, and an Aetherling. But it's still a control mirror in that the matchup is going to revolve around making land drops and making big Sphinx's Revelations. And as you can see, Korey agrees that this matchup is very much about making land drops and card advantage because he actually used a Syncopate on the front side of Andrew's Think Twice there.
Andrew went for the end of turn Think Twice, and then Korey decided to Syncopate that.
Yeah, well, that's just how important, being able to get deep into your deck is. And Andrew, with nothing better to do, he was planning to flashback his Think Twice this turn, but without that option available to him, nothing better to do than attack for 2 with Mutavault, and Korey's got to be pretty happy about that.
Yeah, now he's got a free turn here.
Yeah.
Andrew's shields are down. He got in for 2 damage, but declines to represent any kind of counter magic. In his deck, Andrew does have 2 Dissipates, 2 Essence Scatters, and 2 Syncopates. So is he saying that he doesn't have any counter spells in his hand, or does he just
not necessarily
care at this point?
Yeah, Korey doesn't have many things. Like, there aren't many things in Korey's deck that could really punish him there. So if you don't have something to cycle, then you're better off just getting in for the 2 damage. But the fact that he doesn't have anything to cycle, and so he just got in for 2, means that Korey's going to be able to get a lot more traction going forward. And all of a sudden, Andrew is sort of forced into the beatdown role, and this sort of proves my point that he has to play Restoration Angel while Korey's tapped out, because he knows he's pretty far behind now and has to get on board, at least tax Korey's resources, if not try and kill him.
Yeah, Korey, McDuffie, flashback Think Twice there at the end of Andrew's turn, and Andrew dropped the Restoration Angel. Now it's going to get Warlord's Helix,
which is a nice tempo boon, but looks like Korey missed a land drop there.
He did. He played that Sacred Foundry tapped last turn.
That is unfortunate for him.
Now he's stuck at 4 lands. Andrew's going to take this opportunity to attack for 2 once again with the Mutavault.
This is not how this matchup normally plays out. It's mostly a lot of draw go and a lot of cycling, not attacking with Mutavaults and missing land drops. But I have to say, I think that Andrew is going to be favored going forward unless Korey can really start making land drops and pressuring, or at least relieving the pressure that he's facing.
He's got a lot of card drawing spells there. I Think Twice, Azorius Charm, Sphinx's Revelation.
Yeah, it looks like he's
sorcery speed removal and the Pillar of Flame.
Yeah, it looks like he was thinking about cycling one of those at sorcery speed to try and make his land drop. He decides that leaving up the mana is too important. Passes the turn, going to look to do that on Andrew's end step, assuming he doesn't have to counter anything. He also threatens to Restoration Angel here, so Andrew can't really attack with his Mutavault.
That Mutavault just a week away from ascending to godhood as we anticipate the release of Theros.
And here's the little fish that could. Augur of Bolas, not something you like fighting over as Korey here, but something that you may have to.
Just to use a spell.
Yeah, just to make something happen. Otherwise, you're giving him a chance to reach deeper into his deck for another cycler or card advantage spell or counter and getting on board. Korey agrees he has to counter flux there, still missing his land drop. I feel that Korey has to cycle here to try and make the land drop, don't you feel?
Yeah, I'm also curious, was that a small mistake there? Andrew Watson tapped his Mutavault to cast the Augur of Bolas and then could not attack for 2 on the follow-up.
Yeah, actually that probably would have been better to do the other way. Not likely to matter all that much in the long run.
But now he does attack. Korey has all his mana up, and he's going to think here about using a removal spell on the Mutavault.
Yeah, it looks like he's fingering that Izzet Charm to tag the Mutavault. Actually, funny enough, Mutavault is an angel, so it cannot be saved by Restoration Angel. Yeah, an interaction that took some people a while to remember.
Yeah, I would mess that up the very first time.
Yep, many people did. And it looks like he is going for it.
Restoration Angel has the non-angel clause mostly to prevent it from blinking itself and going infinite, but it comes up from time to time. I remember Angel of Serenity, a lot of people tried to blink.
Also does not work.
All right, so Korey chooses to cast the Izzet Charm to deal 2 damage to the Mutavault.
This is actually a pretty big blowout if it works. Not only, and it is going to get syncopated, is Korey going to fight back? It looks like he does have his other syncopate, so he can, or another syncopate, he's playing 3. Looks like he can syncopate back here, which I feel like he has to. Not only are you relieving the pressure of the Mutavault, but you're also stone raining your opponent, which is pretty important, especially since Korey's been missing land drops himself. Looks like he is going to syncopate. It's a little unfortunate because now you don't get to,
exile the syncopate.
You don't get to cycle your Azorius Charm or Think Twice on end step, so you're still looking to peel a land, and he misses hitting a Restoration Angel there. But, like I said, the swing of that exchange is profitable enough that it's worth doing.
And it was really his only way to deal with that Mutavault at this point with his hand. He drew the Restoration Angel, but he only had the Pillar of Flame and a couple of Azorius Charms.
Korey still choosing not to cycle main phase, representing more counter magic, even though we know he doesn't have it.
At this point, Andrew's just going to pass back. He could be setting himself up for a Sphinx's Revelation here at some point if Korey taps down low.
That is, how he set it up, and wow, we have seen 2 Think Twices countered this game. He's actually going to dissipate Korey's Think Twice here.
Sure, but relevant point is exiling it, so not getting the first or the second use out of those Think Twices.
And with Korey missing land drops, that is a reasonable play from Andrew. Just aggressively try and keep him choked on mana until you can, set up a situation where you're able to tax him. But Korey cycles an Azorius Charm and does hit his land. And he's got at least one more Azorius Charm to cycle and a Sphinx's Revelation. So it looks like he's doing all right, despite missing 2 or 3 land drops there. Mostly because Andrew's hand is not that impressive.
Korey's going to cycle the other Azorius Charm. Not very many other uses for it in this matchup.
Yeah. And he's going to miss yet another land drop, but his hand is looking pretty decent.
Oh, there's the Sphinx's Revelation from Andrew Watson at the end of turn. Korey...
looking like a Snapcaster counter. I can't imagine you let Andrew draw 3 cards here. The game is too close. Korey has more cards but is missing land drops. Andrew has more mana but doesn't have that many cards. So you have to be able to hit him where it hurts and get rid of that Sphinx's Revelation. And Andrew does not have a follow-up Revelation, which is often a sequence you see. End-step Revelation to tap you down, untap Revelation, but he does not have it.
And now Korey McDuffie has established a board presence with Snapcaster Mage, and he's got the Restoration Angel in his hand.
Yep, and he's making more land drops. He is pulling pretty far ahead this game. Andrew's going to have to do something fairly significant here to get back in it.
How about a promo Restoration Angel?
Yeah, promo Restoration Angel trying to ambush Tiago Chan there, but we see a War Leader's Helix in Korey's hand. He could also use this opportunity to cast a Sphinx's Revelation for 3 and let his Snapcaster die. Or he can let the Snapcaster run into the Angel and then Pillar of Flame it post-combat. He can also use his own Restoration Angel to save the Snapcaster and maybe cycle an Azorius Charm. A lot of options. I think that this is the best one. He does use his other Warleader's Helix, take out the Restoration Angel before blockers.
So, no.
Syncopate for 1?
No.
Is that what I just saw?
He put it on the table, he started to tap his lands and saw Korey still had 2 untapped lands.
That was awkward. So Andrew now has a Syncopate in hand that Korey knows about. And
yeah, that card gets a lot worse when
yes.
the opponent knows about it.
Yeah, that is one card you do not want face up on the table, especially when your opponent has 2 Sphinx's Revelations in hand. So he knows exactly how to sequence them and do them for how much on what turns. Well, Korey does draw another land, which is all he really wants at this point, since he's got 2 Sphinx's Revelations and a board presence. He is going to play it untapped. Life total is not that important in this matchup, especially when Korey's already gained 8 life off of 2 Warleader's Helixes this game.
And playing these shock lands untapped usually also signals a Sphinx's Revelation.
Yes, but since Andrew's Syncopate is face up, Korey can just Revelation for 3, leaving up 1 to pay for a Syncopate.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's going to resolve. Korey pulling pretty far ahead here. It is just 3 lands. Morlanon is quite good in this matchup, though.
So Andrew Watson flashbacked his Think Twice, and then Korey McDuffie took that opportunity to cast a Sphinx's Revelation for 3, leaving the 1 land untapped because he had seen that Syncopate.
The awkward face-up Syncopate. And now Andrew is kind of in a rough spot. He's behind on board, behind on cards, about even on mana, and Korey's hand is much stronger.
Now that's a situation where an experienced player in the standard format may leave the 1 mana open anyway.
Yes.
When your opponent has 2 up, because Syncopate is really the only counter main deck that you would expect to see.
Yes.
But it's
and
still awkward that...
I was just saying Andrew needed to do something big to turn the tables back in his favor, and it looks like he found it. An Aetherling comes down with a blue up. That's going to be tough to deal with, near impossible to deal with, so it's going to be tough to race, which is what it's going to come down to, what it often comes down to when you're facing down an Aetherling.
Aetherling secretly has that extra blue kicker. You'll
Yes.
never see it cast
Yeah.
for 6 on turn 6.
The ghost kicker.
I had an opponent cast it on for 6 in a limited match, which is fair. Like in limited, there are fewer spells that deal with it.
Yeah. That's still pretty bold.
But I had it.
Yeah, you killed it.
I do like that picture though.
The Aetherling art?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
He's kind of glowing hands.
Yeah.
Dragon Ball or
Yeah.
something like that.
It's also kind of Mortal Kombat, like, come at me, bro.
What does he show? Okay, he's got the...
He's thinking about attacking so that he can Azorius Charm it to the top. Korey's hand that looked pretty good a second ago looks a lot worse facing down an Aetherling. Not many cards that interact with it.
Right. I mean, what's his best play here? Sphinx's Revelation for 4, and then hope to draw a what?
You have to draw a series of cards. Like, you need cards to pressure the opponent and tempo gainers. Like, you need things that will work as pseudo time walks against the Aetherling, so that, you know, it attacks. Like, it costs some mana to unblockable, and then maybe some more mana if Andrew wants to pump it, and then you take no damage from it by Azorius Charming it or whatever. Even though he blinks it out in response, so it doesn't go on top of the deck, it just comes right back on end step. At least you're not taking that damage, so then you get another attack in, and then try and do the same thing the next turn. That's generally how you beat an Aetherling.
So Korey McDuffie needs to buy some time here against that Aetherling. Thinking about his play.
Looks like he's going to play land tapped, which signifies he's not playing the Sphinx's Revelation. Well, he's going to think about it again. Like, with Restoration Angel and Snapcaster available to him, it's like the options are so wide and so varied. The decision tree from this point is pretty complex. So Korey took a moment to put it together here, decides to attack into the Aetherling. Looks like he's planning, if Andrew blocks, to Azorius Charm it. I'm not sure if that does it. You could also...
He's got a pillar of flame. That's only 4 damage total with Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah.
And he does not have enough.
You can't let Snapcaster deal damage and blink it, because it'll die. Oh, looks like Andrew just took it, so Korey is sort of semi-bluffing two damage there, kind of getting it done. Hitting Andrew down to 14, and now we have this weird race situation.
So it's notable here that Korey plays his 8th land. That opens up the possibility of Restoration Angel, Blink, Snapcaster Mage, Flashback, Warleader's Helix. That's some good tempo there. Get some damage in, gain some life.
That is a sequence that's available to him. Looks like the Ghost Quarter was tapped for the Aetherling, so Korey can actually make a couple of Moorland Haunt tokens if he has creatures or has creatures die.
Yeah, again, we saw earlier Andrew tapped his Mutavault to cast an Augur of Bolas. Again, he's tapping his utility land, where at this point, he's got his colors, so having that up might be the play.
Yeah, like you need a certain number of blue mana available to you for, the double blue counters and for Aetherling's blink out ability, but in terms of the rest of the game, like, white mana and colorless mana is near identical, so you might as well leave the Ghost Quarter up instead of a Plains. Just a small technical thing. But Korey is going to run out the Restoration Angel here.
Okay, so we could see the Helix get flashbacked, maybe the Azorius Charm to deal with the Aetherling. Some
sort of tempo gainer. It might be Helix to the Dome. It might be the Azorius Charm. I think targeting Helix is better. I think target Helix, try and go to blockers. If he uses a blue to make it unblockable, that's fine. And then Helix him for 4, threaten to attack for 5, probably attack for 3 if the Aetherling, pseudo-vigilance by blinking out and coming back untapped. I would give the slight edge to Helix here, but I don't think that Azorius Charm is necessarily all that bad of a choice either.
And I mentioned earlier that Azorius Charm usually gets cycled in this matchup, but at this point, when you're facing down an Aetherling, another option is to use the lifelink, gain some life. Not when you're blocking an Aetherling.
That doesn't work.
but on the attack,
yeah.
Again, gaining life here against an Aetherling, you kind of need to do that.
Yeah, it is a weird dynamic facing an Aetherling because all of your cards are now sort of binary in terms of whether they interact or not, whether they're a tempo gainer or, semi-blanked. And Azorius Charm is one of the cards that actually is just mediocre in the matchup because it just cycles until you're in this type of dynamic, and then all of a sudden it becomes, the cheapest tempo gainer.
It becomes another turn.
Yeah, exactly, a full time walk.
So it looks like Korey is setting up a block here, or a double block. So Andrew has neglected or declined to make Aetherling unblockable.
Yeah, it looks like he has not made it unblockable, and
Korey did move the Warleader's Helix to the top of his graveyard, most likely indicating that that is what he is intending to flash back.
Yeah, so he just blinks it out. Andrew realizes he can't sink all of his mana into the Aetherling. He actually made the mistake of pumping it before blockers.
Interesting.
Like he pumped it main phase 1, I believe. So Korey had, that extra information that he was tapped 2 mana lower and that the Aetherling was at 2 toughness lower. So that option was available to him. But he uses a blue to blink out the Aetherling rather than a blue to make it unblockable because I guess, I was going to say because he could get Helixed, but it looks like Korey did target the Azorius Charm. So I'm not sure about that either from Andrew's perspective, but at least now the Aetherling is untapped and can block the Snapcaster Mage, and a pretty dead Supreme Verdict drawn from Korey here. Not all that exciting against an Aetherling. And the race is on.
Yeah, and again, Andrew Watson tap the Ghost Quarter, so Korey also has the option of making Moreland Haunt tokens.
I don't think he has any creatures right now, but if he were to, say, get his Snapcaster to a chump block or get an Augur countered or something like that, he would be able to make a token, which may not seem like much, but in these really tight race situations, that extra, 2 or 3 points from that 1/1 attacking for a couple turns can be the difference between winning and losing.
Andrew Watson is at a mere 11 life against a deck that, as you see, does pack a few burn spells.
Yeah, Korey auguring into a second pillar, so Andrew's at a theoretical 7 right now. And Korey's got a full grip. A couple of mediocre cards in the pillars and Supreme Verdicts and a couple lands, but he also has is that a Sphinx's Revelation or was that the Supreme Verdict? If he has a Revelation, then it's definitely looking pretty good for him. And yes, he does in fact have a Sphinx's Revelation.
But he's going to play that Steam Vents tapped.
Yeah, this isn't the turn that he's going to use the Revelation. Looks like he also has a Snapcaster, so this turn is likely going to be end step Snapcaster. If he gets countered, Moreland Haunt. If it doesn't get countered, then Helix. I mean, Korey's at 21. He can even take a hit or two from the Aetherling. He doesn't have to worry about being burned out from the blue-white deck. Cavern of Souls. Let's see what that names for you guys.
I noticed that earlier among the utility lands. Andrew's
It's
playing.
basically just for this matchup, and you just named Shapeshifter to get your Aetherling in play. But the Aetherling got in, en natural, so now he can name, say, Wizard or Angel and protect one of those other cards. But it looks like he did name Shapeshifter, even though the Aetherling's already in play, just in case it gets Azorius Charmed back or what have you. That it can't get countered on the way back down. So attacking with no unblockable again, I have to assume this is going to be a chump. And sure enough, it's a chump, and Andrew lets the creature go to the graveyard before Ghost Quartering the Moreland Haunt, so that's going to be another 1/1. Aha, this makes more sense. Supreme Verdict. Tapping the Ghost Quarter instead of the Cavern, which makes no sense, but
I think
that's still quite a powerful card.
The sequence you want here is to Ghost Quarter the Moreland Hunt before you put creatures in the graveyard.
Exactly.
You're essentially giving him 2 free 1/1 tokens here.
And it's not like the Cavern is gonna tap, you're not gonna flash in some Shapeshifter uncounterably. But Korey's hand is actually decently set up for exactly this situation because he has Snapcaster Helix, which puts Andrew to 7. Looks like he's just gonna Moreland Haunt. I like that. You might as well Moreland Haunt while you can and save the Snapcaster for a later turn.
Right, because it's always possible that your opponent has missed, that you've played a utility land.
Yeah.
But the first time you use it, it's going to be like, aha, maybe I should be destroying that.
Yeah. If Korey were to use the Snapcaster this turn, then there's a possibility that he's taxed for mana the next turn and gets his Moreland Haunt Ghost Quartered and can't make a creature with it, or he'll only be able to make 1 creature with it instead of 2. So I definitely like Korey's play there. It looks like he's going to attack for 1, putting Andrew down to 10, and the race is pretty close again.
Is it close? It feels like it's almost over with all the burn that Korey has available to him.
Yes, Andrew doesn't know quite how much life he's actually at. He knows about one of the pillars, but with another pillar and a Snapcaster representing a War Leader's Helix, and a Sphinx's Revelation as bait to force it all through, and the Moreland Haunt for additional board pressure, I would have to say Korey's definitely favored here.
I think he fires off some pillars here just because he's expecting to use his Moreland Haunt again.
Yeah.
So his mana is going to be constrained, doesn't really want a Sphinx's Rev.
Exactly. If you're not going to Revelation this turn, then I think this is the perfect turn, the quote, turn off, that you can throw away a mana or 2 on pillars, so that on a later turn where the mana is more important, you don't have to be choked.
There you go, 1 pillar, take 2.
2, 4, 6, 8. So he's got 8 mana now, which is Moreland Haunt activation and 5. So it's Snapcaster Counterflux plus a Moreland Hunt activation, so he's probably not going to use the other pillar right now. Although he is thinking about it. Like 6 also is... Oh, he also could have pillared again and played an untapped land. But chooses to play the Hollow Fountain tapped, leave the Sulphur Falls for next turn. Only use the one pillar that Andrew knows about. And now what is Andrew going to do to dig out of this hole?
So right here, what Korey's setting up for is he's going to make a second 1/1 token. He's got the pillar, he's got the flashback War Leader's Helix, so he's representing lethal that we know of.
Yes.
Andrew does not, so that could be another reason not to fire off that second pillar.
Yeah, just mask more information. Like, there's a lot of value in deception in this matchup. In any, like, control-ish mirror or, I mean, in Magic the Gathering in general. But in these matchups in particular, like, spending a card is one less card that they have to worry about in your hand. Like, the potential of what your card could be is so much scarier than when you use your card and they actually know what it is.
Andrew uses the Ghost Quarter targeting Moreland Haunt, and now Korey does exile another creature to get his token. So that chip is on the table.
Yes. We're finally past that phase of the game of Moreland Haunt versus an unused Ghost Quarter. But Andrew's looking a little light on cards, and there actually aren't that many relevant cards that he could have, like cards that interact with what Korey is doing right now.
So now, Korey McDuffie. Is he going to go for the Snapcaster War Leader's Helix here?
It's possible. It's also possible that he uses Revelation first.
To draw out a counter
Yeah,
spell?
as bait. Plus, if your Rev for 3 resolves, then like it's going to be pretty easy to race the Aetherling from there. But it's also possible that he just takes the turn back, uses neither, so that he can use the Sphinx's Revelation as bait the next turn, so that it's, you know, a Revelation for 7 instead of just 3, so that it's much more effective as bait, and then untap and Snapcaster the Helix the turn after. And it looks like that's what he's considering now. I think I might like that. Just take the turn back if you have nothing else to do. But I play pretty conservatively. Korey might be a little more aggressive about it.
Korey McDuffie with 2 1/1 Flying Spirit tokens represented here by Tom Martell.
Hey, those didn't come from the Lingering Souls. We shouldn't let him use them. Give him some other spirits.
Facing off against Andrew Watson with an Aetherling. Aetherling by far the superior card on the board, but Korey is ahead in life, so...
And cards, and mana, and on board.
Here he goes, pulling the trigger.
It looks like it is Snapcaster.
Snapcaster Mage at the end of Andrew's turn.
He's going for the throat. Here it comes.
Let me see your graveyard. What you got in there? This spell that takes half your life total. So what do we see right there in Andrew's hand? I think a Snapcaster and a Syncopate?
A Snapcaster and a Syncopate, and another card that I didn't see.
So he goes for the Snapcaster Mage to buy back a counterspell here.
Yeah, it's got to be just a counter for the Snapcaster.
Buy back a Dissipate. There it is. 3 mana for a Dissipate.
And that's one of the reasons to use the Sphinx's Revelation as bait. But it doesn't really matter, because whether the Snapcaster Mage Helix resolves or the Sphinx's Revelation resolves, you're probably winning. And the Sphinx's Revelation is less... Ooh, another Snapcaster. That's a nice little draw.
That's it, right? Andrew's only got 1 mana untapped. Korey McDuffie has just drawn another Snapcaster Mage, so he should have enough mana here to do the sequence
Pillar,
of burn
Snapcaster
spells.
Helix is lethal, yep. Korey just making sure that the math checks out, and it does. He goes for the Snapcaster Mage, War Leader's Helix U,
Swan
Pillar
Song.
Flame U, Swan Song it. Main deck Dispel. All right, Korey McDuffie takes down game 1. So, the difference between these two decks, one is the blue-white deck mana base is better. Originally, that was a concern, out of concern for Burning Earth, but the way that it works out, it actually gets to play more utility lands, whereas the red version has the burn, the extra reach, so even if the blue-white control deck stabilizes, the blue-white-red flash deck can actually steal wins even from a theoretically stabilized position, and it has counterflux instead of dissipate, which is a nice little thing to have in your back pocket for counter wars.
I've got a question for you, AJ.
Okay.
We saw Andrew Watson attacking with the Mutavaults early, and we speculated that it was because he just didn't have anything else to do, and the Mutavault eventually was killed with an Izzet Charm. Now, given that this matchup seems so dependent on mana, having more lands than your opponent, was that even the correct move to be attacking with Mutavault? You can't really expect to kill your opponent with Mutavault.
Yeah.
So is that first 6 to 8 damage even worth anything?
No, I agree. I don't think it's generally that good. On turn 3 or whatever it was, when he had stone nothing else to do and Korey was tapped out, like that was fine. Getting your free 2 points, because you never know when it might matter. It might be, a turn difference on an Aetherling. You might as well get in your damage since you're not really representing anything anyway. But once Korey started untapping and having a bunch of mana and cards available to him, I think the Mutavault should have, taken the hint, stayed home, chilled a little, made some mana, and then maybe come back into action later on.
Korey even got to use what was pretty much a dead card otherwise.
Yeah.
Izzet Charm.
Yeah, the Izzet Charm is almost always Spell Pierce mode in this matchup. Being able to go into Stone Rain mode is a pretty nice boon. Especially because at that point, Korey was missing land drops. So he actually got to catch up a little there by killing the Mutavault. I definitely think that Andrew's got to be a little more careful, try and protect his lands a little more, because, the players were countering each other's Think Twices. That's how important making land drops is.
Right.
You're spending these premium counter spells on what is essentially a cantrip, because you can't let the other player get ahead of you on both land drops and cards in hand. So, that being said, you're trying to go beat down at the risk of falling behind on lands. Doesn't seem like the game plan. Doesn't seem like where you want to be.
So let's talk sideboarding here.
Both decks get to improve a lot. Both decks have a lot of cards that aren't that great, such as Supreme Verdict and Pillar of Flame, that just don't really do much in the matchup. And both players get to upgrade all of those pretty narrow, pretty cards that are oriented for creature matchups in this non-creature matchup, and they get to cash them all out for a bunch more counters and more targeted removal that actually effectively deals with what the opponent's trying to do. So we see Korey with an Aetherling of his own, a Jace, which is also probably coming in, then a third Counterflux and 2 Negates, as in addition to 2 Dispels that are all coming in. He might be bringing in Detention Sphere also, because these blue-white decks often have 2 to 3 Planeswalkers after board. So
you said Jace, that's Jace, Architect of Thought.
Yes, that Jace. Little Jace. Medium Jace.
Which Andrew also has. He had one main deck, and he's actually bringing in Jace Memory Adept.
Daddy Jace. That one was... Jace Memory Adept was sort of the go-to win condition in these matchups. Players were playing 2, and then they were playing 3, and then they were cutting their Dispels for Negates because you needed to deal with Jaces, and the whole matchup was sort of incestuous around that one card. And once these decks sort of fell out of favor, and then Aetherling was printed, and so the decks that did play, or these decks played Aetherling instead. But Jace is kind of coming back around now that Aetherling is, people have figured out how to play against it.
And Andrew is also going to be bringing in some number of extra counterspells, 2 Dispels, 2 Negates. He also has an Oblivion Ring. He did have 2 Detention Spheres in the main deck.
Yeah, O-Rings coming in, and Tallrins are also probably coming in.
Here we go.
Depending on how, how aggressive he wants to be. If he wants to be straight up an Aetherling deck, then obviously you don't bring them in. But if you're trying to, I don't know, play on the same level as them, then it's actually a decent card because it's pretty hard to answer if it's not countered right away.
Here we go. They're both hitting their first 3 land drops. Andrew starts off with a Think Twice.
The first Think Twice actually got syncopated from Korey. The second one's gonna be let through. And
so again, countering Think Twice's early, especially with counter spells that exile the card.
Yes. And if I were Korey right now, I would think that Andrew does not have another land. Especially now that he's making sure that his Think Twice does not get through. The way he sequenced his land, it was like dual, Mutavault, Plains Ghost Quarter, and like that's not the order that you would play your lands in if you had, you know, basics and glacial fortresses.
No
and stuff.
second blue to represent Dissipate.
Exactly. But he did flashback the Think Twice, hit an island off of it, and now both decks, both draws are kicking into full gear here. Full hands making their land drops. This is going to be a more standardized version of this matchup. Wow. Andrew getting aggressive.
Again. The Mutavault attacking into 4 untapped mana.
So Korey can try and ambush it with a Restoration Angel, or he can just let it go and try and Think Twice and, you know, just take 2 damage. I think the upside of killing the Mutavault is actually worth it here, because you're sort of pricing Andrew into countering your Restoration Angel, which isn't necessarily the card that you want to be fighting over.
Wow, that was very aggressive.
Looks like Korey just took it. He figures that the Think Twices are more important. And that's definitely reasonable. Get deeper in your deck, get more things that matter. Andrew making sure his Think Twice resolves because, as we've surmised, he is light on lands, wants to make sure that he can draw to more.
That's 3 Think Twices for both players now.
Yeah, Andrew's playing only 3 while Korey has all 4, and it's actually quietly one of the most important cards in this matchup. I've been ranting and raving about it all match, so you know my feelings on it. And this is exactly why. I mean, Korey got to counter 1, and now Korey has 3 cards just sitting in his graveyard in addition to a full grip. So Andrew, despite looking a little iffy for a while, has drawn out of it, hasn't missed the land drop.
But he only has 2 blue.
He is light on
available.
blue, which is trouble, because you can't play, like, say, that Jace Memory Adept that we see in his hand with counter backup. You also can't do, like, Sphinx's Revelation with counter backup, or, like, Dissipate and Negate, or something like that. And it looks like Mutavault's coming in again.
Is he trying to bait Korey into tapping out so that he can land something like a Jace Architect of Thought here?
Oh, the mana doesn't work out for that, so I think it's just that he thinks that the coast is clear and he can get in damage. I don't think that this is any type of mind game or tactic. I think it's just, all right, get you for 2. And
Korey takes it again.
Korey thinks that something's up. He's just going to chill.
Keep drawing more cards.
Yeah, flashback to Think Twice and take the turn back. It's actually pretty funny. Since the attack with Mutavault looks so fishy, even though it's not really, Korey's actually just choosing not to play his Resto, or maybe he thinks that his Resto has more value and he can wait until later so he can fight to protect it. Maybe he draws a Dispel or Negate. And then if you're in that same situation and Andrew attacks again, and you can go Restoration Angel that Andrew's priced into countering, and then you counter back and eat the Mutavault, that's a game-winning sequence. It's going to be hard to come back from that if that's the way that it plays out.
Korey McDuffie passes back. Now he can flash back all of his Think Twices, potentially.
He doesn't want to draw up to 8 and have to discard, so normally you just let the Think Twices chill, draw your card for the turn. Looks like this might be the turn that Korey pulls the trigger on the Restoration Angel, because his hand is so full that he can't even like Revelation or flashback his Think Twices without having to discard. So, no, looks like he's going to take it again. And another Mutavault was played to activate it, so theoretically he's
Is this just extraordinary patience on the part of Korey McDuffie, or has he been kind of mind tricked?
Yeah, it's discipline to a fault. But now he's drawn a Dispel, so it looks like next turn might be the turn to do it. He's thinking about flashing back his other thing twice here, but it would just make him discard a card. I don't think that's good. And he agrees, takes the turn back, draws an Augur Bolas for the turn. You can't play Augur and ambush a Mutavault, but if you play the Augur, then your Restoration Angel gets to blink it. So a couple of different things in motion here for Korey. He's also still a mana off of, say, Restoration Angel, Dispel, Snapcaster Dispel, if he wants double counter backup. So he might just jam Augur anyway, and it looks like that's what he's going to do. Resolves and misses. See, I told you.
Every time.
Every single time, without fail. Puts 3 lands on the bottom of his deck, and gonna play a land down. It's actually not that bad that he missed, because he would have had to discard anyway. So he's gonna play a land down to 7 cards and pass the turn, presumably.
So now the Augur of Bolas is gonna force the Mutavault to hang back, or will it? Will we see Andrew attack with 2
I was gonna say he
Mutavaults?
could attack with both to get 2 in, but I can't imagine that's what he's gonna do. Tap that low for that. He's going to take 2 damage to play his Hallowed Fountain. Even though he was attacked by a Mutavault a bunch, like, your life total is not that important, whereas being able to not be choked on mana on a key, like, counter battle is pretty important. And it looks like the thing that he's looking to do is Restoration Angel with Dispel backup is the only thing that 5 makes sense for here.
So choked on mana, Andrew Watson draws a 3rd blue source finally, so now maybe some more options have opened for him. He plays that Hallowed Fountain untapped.
We know he has at least the Jace Memory Adapt. I think he has an Architected Thought also, as well as a Syncopate and some other blue cards. So his hand's pretty decent, but he doesn't really have a sort of coordinated game plan here.
Taps 4.
There it is.
Jace Architect of Thought. So he still has 1 blue open. It could be Dispel, it could be a Syncopate here. Depends on what Korey's response is. Korey McDuffie.
It looks like it's going to resolve, but Korey's just taking his time to let it resolve so that Andrew doesn't know what's in Korey's hand. You know, he's like, if he just snaps as resolved, then Andrew knows that he doesn't have a negate or dissipate, whereas if he thinks about using a card, then that's another thing. But Jace -2s.
Mini Factor Fiction.
Oblivion Ring, Augur, land. Gonna take the land and the Oblivion Ring. And it was another blue source.
Yeah, do you think Andrew would have taken that land even if it was all alone?
No, probably not at this stage in the game. Like, he definitely would have if that had happened earlier in the game, but I think he's really drawn out of it. And by minusing Jace instead of plussing it, he's opened himself up to Restoration Angel, which I think he thinks that he can counter, but Korey played an untapped land as his 5th source, so he has a Dispel that's fairly face up here.
Here we go.
I have to assume Andrew's going to Syncopate here. That's going to get dissipated back, and then the Jace is going to be attacked down, and then Korey's going to be passing with a better board and a full grip and a ton of lands in play.
Yeah, so there we go. The lack of blue mana really getting to Andrew there.
Wow, spiking a Counterflux off of the Re-Augur also, which is basically all Korey's hand was missing was a counter, especially for that Jace. So now he gets to untap all those lands, play another, kill the Jace, and attack for 1 at Andrew. And at this point, Korey is so far ahead, he doesn't even have to lead back Augur to hold back Mutavaults. Because if Andrew's going to spend his turn activating and attacking with Mutavaults, he's going to be at such a mana disadvantage that Korey can just go Sphinx's Revelation, untap Sphinx's Revelation, and win from there. So he might as well get in this free point.
And in the background, you heard our head judge today, Brian Prilliman, level 3 from Orlando, Florida, also on JudgeCast. I get no royalties for this, despite the fact that I
was going to say, nice plug. All right.
But we do have a little extra time on this camera match. It looks like Korey will probably be able to finish this off in time.
Yep, and even if he doesn't, the onus to win is on Andrew because Korey is up a game.
So there, the Glacial Fortress, finally drawing more blue sources. Is it too late for Andrew Watson to dig himself out of this hole? He's at 17 life, but he's facing down 4 power on the board and a Restoration Angel and an Augur of Bolas. And we know
a Counterflux that he knows about, and then we know that he's got a couple Sphinx's Revelations also.
And we know that Korey packs a lot of burn in his deck.
Yeah. I imagine most of it's boarded out, but yes, that is also a threat. Oblivion Ring on Restoration Angel, not exactly the ideal Oblivion Ring target, but Andrew's under enough pressure that he feels he has to do this.
That Oblivion Ring we saw off of the Jace Architect of Thought -2 a turn earlier.
Korey thinking, do I need to get him dead or do I just keep playing? He decides to keep playing. I agree. I think that this is going to be a Sphinx's Revelation for probably the full amount.
I think you leave one open for a Dispel, right? Or no,
he doesn't have a Dispel. Well, he's just going to flashback Think Twice, play it slow, cycle that Azorius Charm. Fine with that as well. He doesn't want to tap too low and get Sphinx's Revelation himself, even though it's only for 3. Wow, another Counterflux. I don't want to, call the game before it's over, but Korey's hand is looking pretty sick. A couple Counterfluxes and a couple Sphinx's Revelations. Some lands and some Snapcasters, just all the goodies.
Counterflux. Surprisingly, when it first came out, I think it was very underrated.
Yes. Well, people saw the overload and they're like, why would you ever overload this? This is stupid. It's just like, yeah, but the overload's not the important part of the card. It's that it can't be countered. Have you ever seen it overloaded?
No.
Have you ever overloaded it? You've never seen it? It is a delight.
Is it?
It doesn't happen often, but when it works, it's awesome. They Sphinx's Revelation, you Revelation in response. They counter your Revelation, and then you counter the counter and their Revelation with the overloaded Counterflux.
How much mana is that?
These games go long, man. Look at the board.
I don't think you have enough lands in your deck to do what you just described. There's the other Jace. Jace Memory Adept from Andrew. He's going to figure out which lands he wants to tap. Excuse me.
Yeah, Korey just fluxing this. No fuss, no muss. Dispel your Counterflux. That's an interesting play.
No, that doesn't work.
Well, it's a legal play. The Dispel resolves. Yeah. But does not have an effect.
And that's the other great use for cards that are not oft seen.
And Counterflux is awesome. It's like Dissipate and Duress in one.
If you use cards that are slightly off the radar, they can often have an effect where your opponent will misplay.
That is true.
That I will dispel. Your Sphinx's Revelation.
Korey obviously does not care much about that Sphinx's Revelation.
He's got another one.
He has another one and a couple Snapcasters. Now it's just a matter of not throwing it away, basically. When you're in these positions, like, you're obviously favored, but you're not. The game's not over. Like, you're only 90% to win. Like, you can still mess it up or have your opponent draw really, really well out of it, and you draw really poorly.
Right. So he's gonna leave enough mana up for that other counter flux.
Yeah, leads with Rev for 4, leaving up Flux. I actually like this play. I think this is a very precise move from Korey. It's
the only thing that can really steal this game is an Aetherling, right?
even Aetherling is going to be hard pressed to win from here. It would have to be like running Memory Adepts, which we already know that the one that he has is countered. Andrew just sorcery speeding a Resto, trying to get it in there. I assume Korey's just going to let this resolve and then take his turn back.
Yeah, Restoration Angel is just not a threat here.
Yeah.
Korey
You can
McDuffie,
always just Snapcaster Azorius Charm it, or
just gain a lot more life.
yeah, or just run it out with Revelations. It looks like they have a minute left, so, and Andrew has to win this game and another to win the match. And it draws his own Restoration Angel, that'll work too.
So Korey McDuffie, most likely moments away from a victory here in round 7. The defending champion, he took down the last Atlanta Open with Junk Reanimator.
Yeah, Korey's a really, really great player. I've known Korey for a long time, actually. He's one of my good friends, and he's such a goofball because he doesn't like really try that hard or, you know, practice at all, but he just like shows up and plays whatever he wants to play and then just crushes because he's just very naturally talented, very, very strong player. So it looks like time has been called. We are now at turn 0.
So 5 additional turns here.
Which means Andrew gets 3 of them. Do you think that he can deal 12 damage in 3 turns?
Aetherling. Cavern of Souls, Aetherling.
Still don't think that would be enough, but that would be one way that he could theoretically do it.
He's got 2 Mutavolts too. He needed it right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Korey McDuffie in the Atlanta area has been playing for quite some time.
Yeah, he's been around for a while, and he's a kid. I mean, he is an actual child.
We went over this earlier. You're the kid.
Yes.
He's a baby.
Oh, okay. Excuse me.
Get off my
Yes.
lawn. All you guys.
Old man Hayashi here. Yeah, I knew Korey when I was, you know, the youngest Magic player I knew, and he was 2 years younger than me, or 3 years younger than me.
But the kids are taking over. Shahar Shenhar, world champion.
Yep.
Multiple Grand Prix champion.
Matt Costa was on a pretty hot streak for a while. All those young kids are pretty good. Reed is 23.
23?
Yep. Well, he just turned 24. The day that he won Philadelphia last weekend, he turned 24. That was his birthday.
That's right. I was there in Philadelphia. We were speculating whether if his opponent stalled out the finals match till after midnight, if Reed's powers would run out,
his luck
and he would
run
lose.
Out. Yeah, that is a good birthday gift to give to yourself. First place trophy and a nice fat check.
Well, you don't get the check till a couple of weeks later. All right, so fighting over the Snapcaster Mage. Andrew has cast Dissipate. Korey is going to strike back with the Counter Flux.
Overloaded Counter Flux.
Okay, so we are fighting over.
We were just talking about this.
It just happened. Overloaded Counter Flux.
So now he gets to target something else with his Snapcaster instead of a counter to counter the Augur. He gets to target like a Revelation for 2 or something.
There you see on your screen, Counter Flux cannot be countered by spells or abilities. Counter
even if it's dissipated or
dispelled.
it still doesn't.
Lovely art by Scott M. Fisher. one of my favorites.
Did you know that before the picture came up?
I actually did.
Okay.
Scott Fisher has done some of my favorite works of art.
Like
my
what?
favorite being Time Stop.
Time Stop?
Yeah. The end the turn one with the strange.
Yeah, that's a cool art. It's pretty trippy. Yeah, it looks like he's just going to cantrip an Azorius Charm.
Now Andrew casts a Snapcaster Mage of his own. Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew's just trying to like play aggressively because he only has a couple more turns and he has to deal 12 damage through this giant wall. So his only real way to win is to just like throw a ton of stuff on board and, you know, hope that it's enough.
Sure, and he still has those mutavolts.
Yes. That much is true.
So he's got quite a few creatures assembled now.
Snapcaster's going to get syncopated for 2, which...
So Korey's using this just to sync
just
Andrew's mana.
Shut off the mana so that it can't get anything sweet and tap him out. Dispel gets the backside of the Azorius Charm off of the Snapcaster, and now Korey untaps for turn 2 to a completely tapped out Andrew Watson with 1 card in hand. In the words of the great Kenny Shung, who's favored?
I don't know.
I think it's Korey.
In the words of the not-so-famous wrestler, who's better than Canyon? The answer was everybody.
Okay.
Because he was not a very good wrestler.
Was he a jobber?
I don't know. I think they tried to push him at one point.
Okay. Jobber, by the way, is a term that I'm going to try and start using for Magic. Apply to Magic players. I like it. The guys that just like perpetually show up but never win. Our director is waving and pointing to himself. That's good. Very strong.
Isn't that almost everybody?
I guess.
But we have 660, some reports said 666 players here today in Atlanta. Somewhere in the 660s.
And only one person gets to win.
Only one person's going to win. Only 64 of them
get money.
Yeah. Money. We have 600 quote-unquote jobbers. But we're glad they're all here.
Absolutely.
The real point is to have fun playing Magic. And if you win some money, that's kind of like a
bonus.
Then
it's gravy, yeah.
And then all your friends want you to buy dinner, and you're like, entry fee was 40, I only actually made 10. I can buy myself
and
a
I need
Subway.
Another 40 tomorrow.
We could have a TV series. Instead of Breaking Bad, we could call it Breaking Even. Because I think that is the actual goal in playing Magic.
Absolutely. If you can have this like fairly expensive hobby, just free rolling it, that's the dream, right? I mean, it's the best game ever.
Yeah. And just do other things on the side. You have Monday to Friday to have real job type stuff.
Yeah.
And if you break even on your hobby on the weekends, that's just a great time.
That is a good deal, yes.
We are in turns here, round number 7. Korey McDuffie and Andrew Watson at the StarCityGames.com Atlanta Open. Turn number 2. We've moved on to turn number 3 now, because Andrew has untapped.
Yes, Andrew is turn 3. Looks like he is passing to Korey for turn 4. Yeah, Korey doesn't even have to do anything here. Just draw and pass back for turn 5. And he will take down the match 101.
And he did leave a War Leader, at least one War Leader Helix in.
Yeah, no, Helix is fine. It kills Restoration Angel and kills Jace.
And
there we saw the handshake. That is match to Korey McDuffie. But yeah, it kills Jace and Restoration Angel and like Augur in response to a Restoration Angel blank. Like it still has applications.